Why hello there, my fellow engineers. Rodamon here. Thank you for tuning in to Stationeers. Episode 12, the start of water condensation automation. And let's keep babysitting the potatoes for now. To make sure that they are growing, because I'm still potentially going to starve if they don't grow, because I only have one potato left. One seed left. So while I'm waiting on that, I'll just do some simple base maintenance, and then we can take on some other tasks. So what do you want me to do next will be up to you. But I'm not going to start working on it until, like, I definitely have potatoes, and I'm definitely not going to starve. So here is that poll. There you go. I'll put 5 minutes on there. Not be bad for me to prep some more bottles of water, because I was down to partial. And then I also want to add like a logic roll cover on that, which I think is printed here. It's part of the door kit. So that's some iron and copper. And the alloys that I don't use frequently, I can put away. Well, before I print this, I could actually look up kit door. Door kits. Composite roll cover. Yeah, that's what I want. Perfect. So to hide the ugliness of your base... Oh, is it? Oh, there it is. Ta-da! Now I don't have to look at it. And there's a lot of paneling and stuff. You can make your base look sleek. You know, I'm obviously not doing that. So, let's... Because I want to make sure that my logic works. I want to babysit it until it actually physically turns on. So my logic reader right now is... A day-night cycle is 20 minutes, so it is climbing to be greater than 90. And if I designed it right, it will turn on itself without me having to intervene. I can always just look at the solar angle here. There's some other nice-to-haves. One other thing that would be really cheap to do is a portable filter to filter out pollutants and other things you don't necessarily want to breathe from the base, because the base here is, it's, you know, it's got some nasty in it. It's got some pollutants. Not a whole lot, but some. Looks like water production automation is going to be the popular goal. And I can start brainstorming that. So there's a lot of things to do here. With digital meters, I would be able to control the pressures of the gas mixer. Right? Because you don't want this to overpressurize, you don't want it to underpressurize, you want it to keep it in some sort of like sweet medium. But that's easy. The hardest things I would say would be the coolant pumps. Those are finicky. They need to be more tightly controlled because they're privy to their fail points. And I'm trying to think of like how to set it up as like fail safes. So one thing I could do
is if the coolant goes below a certain threshold. So we take the temperature of the coolant, and once it falls below, let's say like -10 Celsius, the turbo pump sucks inward. That would be a pretty simple automation, which would prevent the coolant from super freezing, I think. So that's one thing that we could do. Another thing that I could do to help the coolant system is to just melt a whole bunch more nitrice, which is like frozen nitrogen, and introduce it into the system, so the system has more volume. And in being more voluminous, it's going to be less likely to be subject to temperature shock, because there's not a ton of volume in there. It could definitely, you know, there's only like about 100 moles or so of stuff, and I could obviously add a lot more moles of stuff to it, so that it doesn't zigzag up and down like crazy temps. So that would be something significant, a significant improvement to the system. I don't need the labeler right now. Let's see. My tools are mostly refilled. Now all of my tools are powered up. The light should be turning on any second now. I've been sitting here basically waiting for it. So the solar angle read is like 88, 89, and any minute it should flick on and be done. And if you're wondering, there's a significant amount... Oh, there it goes. Solar angle's greater than 90. And the light turned on. I didn't touch it. It wasn't me. Maybe I shouldn't be using my microwave as a stare. But whatever. So now it's saying solar angle's 92. 92 is greater than 90. So turn on the light. Very rudimentary automation that works fine. And we can fine tune it if we want. We can change the angle. You know, if the angle changes from 90 to 75, the light's on more often. Or if we want the light on less often, right? Like, it can be fine tuned. My point is, but it's functional. Okay, so let's... Now that that's growing, I will need to periodically check in to, like, harvest the potatoes. And then to microwave them so I actually have food. Because I'm down to, well, alright, we'll eat. I'm down to 1.07 cereal bars. So yeah, this could not grow any sooner. And there might be some darkness shock initially, because now that the automation is in, some of the plants might be over-illuminated, some might be under-illuminated, but eventually it will normalize to a level that is tolerable. Which is good. So the current priority right now is to add automation for the water filter, or water gen. So the first one that is very obvious to fix is automating this turbo pump. And we already have a digital valve to it. So the first question I have is, if it was a simple temperature check, would the temperature check detect it being empty? Does empty have a temperature or not? So we're going to want a reader reading off this pipe analyzer. And then we're going to want a data port plugged into this volume pump so that I can actually write data to it. So I can turn it on and off remotely. Because I think having to manually operate the gas mixer and then the H2 combustor and the condenser and the water filter is like not a big deal. That's not a big deal at all. Right? I hit a button, and if it stays on, like, who cares? It's like 10 extra watts. But this thing is finicky. And you raise a good point. I also would like to be able to control this from outside, so adding a power console to it that just controls whether the pump's on or off as like an override switch would be nice as well. But let's first hook data up. And then see what kind of information we can even read off this pipe analyzer. because we can only work with the data we have, and depending on the values it throws, it will change the approach that I take. So first thing is logic I/O. And I think for ease of use, I'm going to set up the reader like over here, and then eventually I can move it. Or I can set it up like anywhere, but eventually I'm going to move it to one of the back walls to hide it. But I don't want to have to keep climbing up there, so this is just like ease of access. So that's all the necessary ports. I'm clearly very low on cables. And I'm going to want to label this so it's identifiable on the data network. So this is the coolant turbo volume pump of gas. And the coolant pipe analyzer. Okay, good enough. So, the coolant pipe analyzer. Oh, let's keep that off for now. Coolant pipe analyzer. Pressure, -1, which means it has nothing in it. Temperature, -1. Okay. So, if I had something in it, it is in Kelvin, so it will never be -1. Right? So that's very useful. It means that I can detect temperatures in Kelvin and trigger the pump to start pumping once it hits a Kelvin threshold, because it should never be -1, so it will be a positive number, which is great. So then I'm going to need a logic memory. Yeah. Yeah, it's very hard to get the last few drops of gas out. Then I'm going to want logic memory for whatever temperature threshold that is. So this will store some sort of temperature threshold, and then I'm going to need at least one compare. Probably more, but at least one. Oop, that's math. Logic process. Now the question is, if it's below that threshold, I'm going to want to turn the pump on. But then the pump will theoretically just keep running until I tell it to turn it back off, which we don't necessarily want because these turbo pumps are not cheap to run. 70-watt grow light. Where is the turbo pump in this? 260 watt turbo pump. So it's like half of the entire power that I'm currently drawing off the network. The other thing is I'm going to need to keep this reader on, the pipe analyzer, all the time if I want this to run. Oops. And it is struggling because it's not getting the remainder all that effectively. There's other pumps that like do low volume better. Now the question is, do we care about the last few drops? If we do, we just leave it on until the pressure reads -1. Oh, it's set to low pressure flow. Yeah, that's true. And then the power required for this, for reference, is a lot higher, 800. So it's not something you want to like leave on, cause oof. So automating this to turn on is great, but without telling it to turn off, it's going to be a problem, right? Okay. So, this will read as... Oh, temperature 0, yeah. I guess 0 is the... It has nothing in it. So, if freezing is 273 Kelvin, is that right? 0 Celsius to K, 273? 263 is a good threshold, like -10 Celsius to trigger. To trigger a turbo pump. So let's start hooking this up where it actually will live. I don't know. I put it here, but obviously it was temporary. So let's put it in its final living place. And I know that the cutting this here kills the grow light, so we're gonna want that back in immediately. Sorry, grow light. Okay, here works. So I'll hook it up like that. So the logic reader wants data in, so it could be... Yeah, it doesn't really matter. And then this is going to be the memory to trigger the temperature. So this memory is going to be the gas, coolant, or let's call it coolant first. Coolant logic memory, min temp. And this is going to be set to 263 Kelvin, or -10 Celsius. So now the value off of this is 263, and then this is going to be coolant, gas temp, logic reader. Very verbose, so I know exactly what it is. There's no question as to what it means. Achievement get! Potato! How much food do I got? I'm gonna plant both. Okay. Grew our first potato, guys. We're not gonna die! I grew potatoes on Mimas! Alright, let's wire this up before I get distracted again. I'm just very happy that I grew potatoes. So, the logic reader data port. This is the input, so it needs to have access to the pipe analyzer, which it should once this is plugged. And then the input data for this actually, no, I want, well, I guess it's fine, but I'm not using this data port here. but we'll expose this memory on the network. All right. The next thing is the compare. And then the writer. So let's print a compare and print a writer. I already have the compare unit over here. So then we're going to want another I/O. And we are down to a single cereal bar. So I think this potato, we're going to have to eat one of them. I'll replant the other. Because I don't want to keep planting potatoes until I starve. I don't want to die with, like, my potatoes chilling. That doesn't really make sense. Alright, so we've got the reader and the logic perfect. So this section of logic here is going to turn the turbo pump on. That's what it does. So we're going to have a compare unit and a writer. And it's going to read, if the temperature is below -10 Celsius or 263 Kelvin, turn on the turbo pump. Because it means our coolant is getting too cold. Because once it's in use, when we're actively filtering water, it really doesn't reach -10. And even if it did, we wouldn't want to use the coolant. Because -10 coolant equals ice cube water. So I would even say, like, 273 is a reasonable. Like, once the coolant reaches freezing temp. So maybe I'll reset that, because I really don't want to freeze my water. That would be dumb. So I'll set the value of this to 274, which is like 1 degree Celsius. So at 1 degree Celsius, pull the coolant out of the loop. All right. We've shoot. Having a platform here would be nice, but whatever. So, let's wire this up. And yeah, this is going to be inefficient web wiring because I can't be bothered to do it clean. Yeah, inefficient web wiring, as promised. And then let's set up the values. Maybe what I'll do is, do I have an extra... Yeah. Just a platform to stand on. Where'd I put my screwdriver? Oh man, I'm screwed. There we go. I would be a really terrible tradesman. Okay, so that has the right value. This thing is not pointing to any device, so let's go find the coolant pipe analyzer. And we're going to read the temperature off of it. Which at the moment is 0, but 0 is absolute 0, so like obviously 0 doesn't make sense. Now here's the thing. There is an issue. Well, no, that's fine. Because it's 0. I have to think in Kelvin. So, it turns on once it hits 274. We'll figure out how to turn it off, and it might need some extra logic compare to be like... I might need to add extra logic compare to the turning on phase to make it know that if it has nothing in it, it doesn't need to do it. But whatever, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Okay. So the compare unit. So this is going to be the coolant gas temp logic reader. And if the actual temperature of the gas is less than 274, so this next one is going to be the coolant logic memory min temp. Then turn on the pump. So 0, yeah, I see the issue. I'm gonna need it to have a concept of pressure, I think. So that doesn't just like flick it on, but I'll do it wrong first because I can see the issue. So then the input for this logic compare, we should name it. This is the coolant coolant logic compare, coolant logic temp compare, or temp logic compare. And then this is the coolant writer. So the input here is going to be this one, the coolant temp logic compare. And then the output is going to be the actual pump, coolant turbo pump, and whether it turns on or not. And it just turned on. Now, I can override it, as you may have just seen. So it's telling it to turn on, but it only does it the once. So, I actually don't need to add extra logic for the turn off part. Because once the system is cycling, if I have logic to say, when pressure up top is 0, turn off, it will override the turn on command. So the turn on command just gets triggered once as it hits that threshold. It doesn't loop, in other words, if that makes sense. All right, before I do any more, I want to analyze my plants, because I know the grow light hasn't been on for a while. Oh, that one got bigger. Yeah, they're all fine. And we've got very different ideal temperature here. But they're all within tolerance. Pressure. So this potato wants it colder and less pressure. Oh, and the grow light just turned on automatically. Sweet. But yeah, the potatoes are doing just fine. That grow light logic is great. It's maybe not that power efficient because it keeps the light on probably a little bit longer than needed. Because the plants need like, I'm going to make up a number, but let's say 10 minutes of light, 5 minutes of darkness. And I'm giving it like, I'm actually giving it maybe exactly 10 minutes of light. So maybe it is as efficient as it can go. Okay, so we have the logic to turn on the turbo pump that we haven't tested, and it's kind of hard to test. But I'm gonna trigger a small pressure test. Why it's a little hard to turn. Well, actually, I'm going to intentionally generate some hot gas so my coolant gets a little warmer. So I'm going to need to go outside for this. This is not really a test of the logic, because I don't want to add more logic to the system until I've tested the logic that I've written. And, I need to go outside for that. Also, I haven't looked at my batteries. They're still fine. Okay, so let's heat up our coolant by generating steam. So as you can see, the coolant temp is going up, which allows us to not be sitting on the threshold for the coolant loop. And I'm not actually running the system. I just I'll generate a little bit more steam, but I'm intentionally not running the system. Yeah. Just get a little bit hotter, but not like piping hot. That's probably good enough. So now, if I open up this valve, it'll expose the coolant to the radiator loop, cooling down the coolant. And if it works properly, this turbo pump should flick on its own. Before I do that, before I run that test, I want a power console so that I can control the turbo pump from outside too. That way, when I'm running the test, I have some sort of control over the system. All right, for that, I need a kit console, which is just like one of these pads here. And then I need a circuit board, or let's see, a power control circuit board, which is like a souped up light switch. Also gonna need one piece of glass. And some inventory space. So orc scanner and network analyzer and tracker. I don't need on me right now. Console, power controller, glass, data disk. My disk outside. It's probably outside. Oh boy, 40% of a bar. That potato cannot grow any sooner. You, grow, now. I'm getting hungry. So I'm assuming my data disk is outside somewhere. I can always print up another one if I need to. Hey, Duke. Thank you for the raid. Playing some Evil Genius. Oh, that's a classic. I appreciate you being here. I am trying to automate some of my water systems in this game. For your viewers, I'm sure they're going to be super confused as to what I'm working on, but if you stick around long enough, it'll start to make sense. I am living on a moon of Saturn, and I am growing my potatoes and filtering my water. And my water filtration system is very analog, and I'm trying to upgrade it for some logic so that it doesn't fail so easily. Do I have... I have 9 cables. Okay, that should be fine.
Oxygen low.
Helps to close my...
Oxygen critical.
Oh, no. Helps to turn on my soup. Rather than implode my lungs. Alright, we want a way to turn on the turbo pump from out here. So let's install one. This will be the turbo pump console. So put a power controller in. Oh, you know what? I didn't grab the data disk wherever it is. Let's go find it. Not in there. Right there. Wasn't there some food and water in the wrecked landing pod? Yeah, I ate it and drank it. It's gone. I'll prove it to you. Landing pod. Storage. Empty. Without that, I would have died a long time ago. Okay, unfortunately, let's hook this up. Now with it powered on, with the data disk in, we can have this be a linked mode. So linked mode means when it's on, this says on, when it's off, this says off. So this reflects the state of that pump. rather than a toggle, which like doesn't have that kind of info. And this is going to be the coolant turbo pump console. And you can kind of see it written there. Coolant turbo pump console. So now I have like an override. So this is a stress test. Just to back up and explain, this logic says when my coolant gets to, what was the temperature tolerance that I set? I forget the actual number. But once it hits the threshold, the pump should automatically turn on. 274 Kelvin? Yeah, so once it hits 274 Kelvin, the pump turns on automatically. And we should see the power off flick as a result. And that should happen when I expose the system to my radiator loop. So right now my coolant is at 53 Celsius. Here goes the test. So the temperature is plummeting. And if I did this correctly, the pump will flick on at 10 Celsius and prevent my coolant from turning into ice and blowing up. Wow, it is really not going below that threshold. Yeah, it is, just slowly. Patience. I also don't know what that pipe rater says. So that pipe rater probably says something like 7 Celsius. So it's getting pretty close. Now, the other thing is I'm going to need to turn off this gas valve because it doesn't work with this valve open, to be fair. So that's another point of failure. Ooh, I don't know if it turned on. Well, override time. I see the pressure dropping. So the pump is on, and I triggered it from out here. So let's go, let's open this back up and pump all of this out of the system. All the coolant out of the system. Which this needs to be closed for. I don't know why I reopened it. Sorry, coolant. I'm chilling you extra. Let me go read the... Now that it is, like, in use, I'm gonna read the numbers up top. See what's going on. See why I didn't trigger. So let's do 283 for 10 degrees Celsius. Changing this memory. Okay. So it's at 10 Celsius. I don't see, other than me manually overriding, I don't really see an issue with this logic. Alright, 4 Pascal, so yeah, basically it cleared. And it lowered the temperature of our coolant by like 1 degree, so it wasn't terrible. But if I'm going to want to test it again... I do still have gas in the system to test it again. So, we'll do another test. So now, there's nothing in here at all. So this can be turned off, but I didn't actually set up the logic to turn it off. When pressure hits 0, turn off. That's an easier logic to do. Let me think. It should be on, right? Whether... Oh, let me get rid of the tablet. Yeah. So output is the turbo pump, whether it's on or on. Well, I turned the logic back on, and it obviously flicked. Let's go to another pressure test. running the combustor a little bit, raising the temperature of the coolant, and then triggering again. Why is that not linked? My pump is not on. How could I even tell? What I wouldn't give for a mirror, right? I guess I could tell from out here if I had my network analyzer of like what the power draw for the base is, but I didn't bring the network analyzer out. So good job, me. Left the tool I needed for diagnostics inside. All right, our coolant is heating back up. I could actually make it really, really hot by just turning this on for a second. Yeah. So coolant is heating way up because I'm using it to produce water now. I'm making liquid water with the coolant, which is what it was for anyway. So now the coolant is at 108 Celsius. Can I read the pressure in the pipe? So there's no pressure in that one. There is pressure in this one. There's nothing to pump out of here, so I wouldn't really be able to read the pressure because it's like, even if the turbo pump was on, it wouldn't be causing a pressure difference. It was on. Okay, cool, I guess. There goes a lot of wattage for no reason. Thank you for tuning in to Stationeers, which originally streamed live on Twitch as a marathon, one time only. If you have any questions for me, let me know in the comments below. I am not, however, looking for feedback. I asked for no backseating for the series, and also, because this streamed one time only, feedback wouldn't be able to be incorporated anyway. If you would like to catch a live stream of mine, Rhodamont.com has my stream schedule and countdown timers to upcoming streams. If you'd like to join my online gaming community on Discord, Rhodamont.com also has a link to it, as does the description of this video. Thank you so very much for watching. Special thank you to my Patreon patrons, Twitch subscribers, and viewers like you that made it all the way to the credits. So thank you so very much. I hope to catch you next episode or an upcoming stream. Farewell, my fellow Stationeers.